The real crime is you keeping this secret from humanity. That's the real crime. Okay, the other stuff is horseshit. It's just interpretations of what you're writing down on paper. You're making up rules. But if you ask the general public how they feel this should go, a rational, normal person would say, there's no fucking way the defense contractor should be the only people who know that we're not alone. Fuck you.
Especially
That's
when we're
crazy.
facing a massive deficit and you see that they're like the Pentagon hasn't been able to pass the audit and I don't know how many
all that
years.
stuff
like,
is
so
great.
crazy.
But just for humanity, that is a giant piece of information that no one should have. No one should secretly keep information that would change our entire perspective on our existence.
It's definitely wrong that it's happening, for sure. What I will tell you, though, is the issue that we have with bringing forward legislation that would give mass amnesty and pardon to these people is that there are people within the intelligence community and within Congress on both sides that will try to, if you come forward with this, and I'll tell you a very prime example of this in a moment, that they will block it. They don't want it to pass. They will stop it from even coming to the floor. They won't bring legislation that will address it because they want to keep this information secret. So Representative Tim Burchett
But why do they want to keep the information secret?
Because I think that their mouthpiece is in control of the deep state. And that's a thing. And it exists on both sides, okay?
So someone will come to them with marching orders.
100%. Representative Tim Burchett, before I got elected, was kind of on his own little island in regards to the UAP stuff. And he will himself tell you that, this is 100% like a thing, and that these defense contractors and what he believes, the Pentagon not passing audits, all this, these black budget programs. I mean, like, he will tell you he's, again, been leading out this effort way before I got there. He had a piece of legislation that was supposed to enable the FAA to report and develop a different reporting procedure for UAP stuff. And at the time, the chairman of Intel ensured that that legislation was not brought forward, that it was stopped. The piece of legislation that actually passed out of the Senate, it really had no teeth to it. And then Representative Burchett drew a primary challenger that was being backed by the chairman of Intel. And so, when you are touching these, it's like, that meme where you have that stork that's like, don't touch this, and then the little foot comes out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we're doing, and it's not exactly easy because you will take heat from both sides. But it has been a good group that's been assembled that's bicameral, meaning it's both in the House and the Senate, and bipartisan, meaning both Democrats and Republicans are saying like, hey, this should actually happen.
Are they publicly talking about not releasing the information, or is all this stuff done in secrecy?
It's done behind the scenes.
Because if they had to do it publicly, if they had to announce their position on it publicly, it would be very damaging, I think, to anybody's political career on the right or the left.
People would be pissed, right?
Well, they're pissed. Yeah. Well, because I'm pissed, because if they've had it for this long, I mean, if they really did recover something as early as 1947, excuse me.
Well, what I can tell you is for us specifically, we actually were made aware. Some people had come forward that said that they wanted to brief. So about 2 years ago when all this kicked off, we had requested briefings from Arrow that's in charge of kind of compiling the investigative aspect of UAP stuff. And by the way, from the get-go, even in talking to Arrow, I was like, this organization is literally a BS organization. They're never going to tell us anything. And every interaction that we had in the skiff, I was like, this is a nothing burger. But then these people came forward and said that they were actually they were told to not brief our group specifically on this topic, and that it was from, at the time, members of House leadership, but they wouldn't say who. And so I actually went with another member of Congress and confronted multiple people, and they all denying us access. So it's done behind the scenes. You'll see these random little troll blockages that might pop up. But what I can tell you is that with the new administration, specifically with the FBI, specifically with ODNI, we have gotten transparency to where previously we would have been stonewalled. We were actually given briefings. And so what I will tell you is we are going to push for the information that we sought to be out there for the American people to see.
So do you think that the whole idea of disclosure is maybe a multiple step, very agonizing, frustratingly slow process rather than a big dump of all the information that they've had from Roswell to the Aztec one to apparently there's a whole slew. I don't know if it's Aztec, I forget the name of it, but there was another during that same time period. There was a really prominent UFO recovery thing that was not as publicized as the one in Roswell. The big mistake with the Roswell one was the newspaper printed it. And
Well-
so then they had to backtrack, and then they had to do the press conference where they had like some scattered pieces of a weather balloon that didn't look anything like a UFO.
And then
they
the
said to
Air
say,
Force was like, yeah, it was
"Sorry."
nothing.
Yeah, but meanwhile, they flew the wreckage to right field. They flew the wreckage, and Truman met them there, supposedly.
Well, I can tell you in our hearing, we are actually notified, and you can pull this up. I think it was one of the witnesses had talked about what had happened at Vandenberg Air Base, where there was this thing that appeared over the base. It actually had multiple blotters reporting on it from phone calls into law enforcement from like hundreds of people. And whatever had appeared over the base was basically bigger than a football field and basically a red cube with some weird thing in the center of it. I actually had our witness draw this out. This guy is sober as a priest. I mean, was a great pilot, and he's talking about all this. And so, you talk about this stuff, it seems like a sci-fi movie, but based on the evidence that we've seen, I don't have any reason to believe that these people are lying. Based on the evidence that I've seen from our own government, I think that there's something there that the American people deserve to have access to. And so this is not just on this topic, but again, in other topics as well, this has been my perspective, is transparency is what builds trust. Other governments have revealed certain information on it. To think that we are the only, life form on this planet or in this galaxy, I think is a little bit crazy. When you have certain books that are removed because they don't think that people should have access to this information or know it, why remove a book from a Bible? You have the Ethiopian Orthodox text, which has, I think, 88 books of the Bible in total. But in the Ethiopian Orthodox text, it's basically kind of like a mainline OG version of the Bible. And then sometime in the 4th century, there was actually a group that came together and they removed certain books. And the story goes that Revelations actually had replaced Enoch. And so it's interesting because when you're looking kind of full circle on, you hear the stuff that some of these people are talking about, and then you see and you read the book of Enoch, which is a wild read, okay? And then you look at kind of what our modern day description is of what angels and entities are versus what Enoch was seeing and reporting in his language and ability at that time. I think that there's a lot that brings you to then ask the question, well, why would they remove this information?